Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Excellent. See that?
Yay.
See, yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Hello, everybody. It's Brian, Miss Berlin, Mr. Betcher, breaking down security, breaksec education, etc. It's our end of the year show. I think the last time we all talked was around turkey time, Thanksgiving, U.S. time. Been a lot of developments. Miss Berlin, do you want to mention anything, or is it?
I mean, yeah, sure. I guess I can. So I got engaged in Costa Rica.
This time for reals, because
For real this time.
the first picture that went viral on Facebook for the internets was like, oh my god, and yeah, that was.
And the whole story about like the boy who cried wolf is definitely real, because like when I told my mom, she did not believe me.
What?
Nice.
Like, no, seriously, like this time for real.
Wow.
And she's like, are you sure?
It's kind of like when we got married on April 1st. We were, phoning everybody, telling everybody we eloped and got married, and we're on our way up to the Queen Mary. And it was April Fool's Day, of course. So, yeah, I never forget my wedding anniversary. So there's always that.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Hey, Yin Yang.
Stuff like that all the time.
Hey, Yin Yang. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. I hope you're feeling better. I'm glad to see you're back online. So that's our one of our fine moderators here. Thank you for being here. Yeah, Mr. Bedger, how are you doing?
Not bad.
Yeah.
Still have a job. So.
Yeah. That's there's a lot of folks that can't say that now. I don't know if it's the holidays, but layoffs have been kind of numerous. There's several folks that I've seen on LinkedIn that are not only out of a job, but there's been several months where people are still looking for jobs. And so, that makes my decision to start looking for a job that much more confidence inducing and what have you. So, yeah. I appreciate everybody who's, the well wishes and the people who have sent me suggestions for positions. It's interesting. The people have said, hey, I've got a product job or something like that. And why are you getting out of security? Because you want to do product management. And I was like, I've done a lot of security stuff already, and I would kind of like to shift to something that, it's a bit more of a challenge. So, yeah,
Product management is definitely challenging.
I find a lot of intersection between what security people do with regards to fix that thing. If you frame it in the phrase of feature work, and if you get a big bunch of vulnerabilities through a bug bounty program, which is what I run over at the company that I work at, which you can find that on LinkedIn now because I had to announce it. If you take it in the framing of, well, we've listened to our customers and they say that these are things that we need to fix, or these are things that they would like for us to have in their in our product, and then you take those to developers, you take those to TPMs, and you go, our customer has spoken, here's the voice of the customer, and they say we have a ton of vulnerabilities and we probably need to fix these things. And then you try to put them on the roadmap and they're like, yeah, no. And that's probably how product manager works too. It's like, all these customers have said, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to give you dark mode or whatever. So, I see a lot of parallels between product management and taking input from external sources that actually care about our product and trying to make it better by explaining to people where that goes. Now, hopefully as a security product manager, when I become one of those, or a product manager when I become one of those, that people will listen to me. I don't know. Mr. Betcher, do you have any experience being a product manager yourself?
Product manager, no. Of course, worked with product managers.
Did you ever listen to them?
Yeah. Did they listen to you as the voice of the customer?
Executives do. I mean,
there you go. There you go.
But yeah, I think, well, on that, on that topic, I have seen, at least in the industry I'm in, a lot of emphasis more so on security and privacy
Right.
than I ever have.
Right.
Clients who we want their business, they want our business. We get these huge questionnaires, of course, and then we have lots of requirements on security and privacy because the privacy laws are getting very strict, and they're becoming more and more what's the word? Companies are getting caught not having privacy programs, and they're getting
Right.
sued.
Right.
Yeah, or threatened to be sued. So in order to be compliant with the law, they have to do a lot of things that that they normally wouldn't, like get requests from their customers if they
Right.
have a website or something like that to delete their data. So now they have to build in those processes into the application to do that effectively. Otherwise, they're sitting there manually anonymizing rows in a database, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of
Right.
that going on too. And I have this book. It's not here, but it's in the other room, called Devil Inside the Beltway, where they talk about how this company had a Bear Share or a Napster, whatever it was, file sharing app,
Right.
and they actually shared some private file unbeknownst to them, right? Because
Right.
that app went into their system and just shared everything without them knowing. And so they were sued by the government, and they were put out of business in short order, right? Just
Interesting.
because one employee installed an unapproved app and it shared something she didn't even know about. And the government found out about how they found out about it. No one knows. Their speculation, it may have been a competitor that probably wanted them gone. And so there could have been bribery going on, something like that. That's my best guess as to what happened. And if you have competitors in the market and you don't have your privacy notices all up to date and you're compliant with the law and everything, and even if you have an Android app or Google, Apple app on your phone, sometimes those apps, like in the case of Apple, they require a privacy notification.
Right.
Right. So you have to build that in. And then all of a sudden you're getting these emails flooding in, right, to delete data because they have a little button on there that says, hey, do you want this company to delete your data? Okay.
Right.
We'll do it.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, if you get it at scale, right, that's going to be a feature where you're going to create it. And then the iteration is going to be, well, if customers want to delete their data, then in the app, there should be a place that's like, delete all your data. And Google has something similar to that because they wouldn't be able to handle the millions of requests every day to do that. There's, it's millions, but, the number of requests would require a number of people, which, it would be just easier to automate that, hey, little drop tables or, drop this column or, this Hadoop cluster of your data, whatever that's going on there.
Well, a lot of times you can't delete it. You have to anonymize it because by deleting a row, you would screw up everything in the database, right? Those links would be broken and then you'd have downtime, of course.
Right.
So you have to build that in, and that takes time, development, testing, all that stuff.
Right.
So in order to be lawful nowadays.
Yeah, and I think for product management purposes, I think we're all product managers. We just when I hate saying that, like, security is everybody's responsibility, but I think we're all product managers in some way. We're all taking, especially in security, we're taking external information from places. It could be a news article, could be a bug bounty, it could be a third-party pen test that we just got done. We have to communicate that as product managers to people who have to kind of want from us features that we can address. And there's more to it than that. I'm oversimplifying a little bit because there's a whole ideation of an original idea and that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to see, what, when you're thinking of things in a certain context, how you can kind of make those fit into that narrative. So yeah,
There's a lot of parallels, I think, in
Sure.
between
sure.
stuff I've done in cybersecurity and team leading and like all of this
Yeah.
kind of stuff that like, oh, I was kind of doing product management before.
Sure. hmm
We just
Yeah.
didn't call it that. Kind of
Yeah.
like when you're a sysadmin or in the help desk or whatever, and you're kind of still doing security,
Right.
but you're just not calling it that because
Right.
that's not what your job title is. It's the
Exactly.
same, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that I'm on Reddit a lot, and there's there's like a CISP, Reddit, or there's a cybersecurity Reddit, which I got a couple of our articles from tonight that we are going to talk about, and people were talking about obviously certifications, and somebody was like, oh, CISP's great, whatever, and I was like, yeah, I got mine. I was doing physical security, when I was standing watch in the Navy. I was actually walking around buildings, trying doorknobs, making sure the locks were closed on all the classified safes, and they're like, being a security guard isn't security, isn't physical security. And I'm like, what the fuck is it? I'm an apparatus of the security process. I'm literally walking around trying doorknobs and testing safes to make sure that they've been locked properly, and maybe stealing
Which was around before cybersecurity.
Exactly. They equated it to being a security guard, and I'm like, okay, see, that's the problem we have with the gatekeeping thing. It's like everybody does security. If you're in IT, you're doing user provisioning, which is role-based access controls. You're doing, firewall rule audits, which is, making sure that you're not, overly permissive and you're monitoring ingress and egress. And, there's ways to explain away, if you've had more than, say, 5 years of IT experience, you can get your CISP. I mean, as long as you know how to frame it in such a way. And there's some people out there that's like, if you're not doing pure security, then you're complete shit. And I was like, yeah, that's just not the way we need to do things around here. So I've been trying to expand my horizons with things like what jobs I could do, or something like, bug bounty, the product management stuff, AppSec, discussions and things like that. But yeah, just, you think about that when you're looking for jobs, or when people think about that, you don't want to, it's not just a SOC analyst. You're doing, you're doing all kinds of analysis of that. In that case, you're taking, disparate parts in a system, and you're analyzing it like an Intel analyst would do for, like, the CIA or something, except their data coming from different sources, but yours is coming from Windows event logs, and it's coming from, endpoint security over here. And it's like, wow, oh, if I see this and I see this, oh, hey, maybe that's the thing. You're analyzing it like a different order, a different level than it's like somebody who's just watching shit, scroll on the screen. So it's all in how you frame things. And I've been trying to do that. What's that?
No, it made me think of something. So, like, this is kind of going on a tangent and not really talking to the articles, but I would love to know your guys' thoughts on just like your path so far and where you want to go. So, like, I was talking to somebody that was on my team. We're like switching teams around, and both of us have heard this from somebody, that there are some people that have like very hard set, this is what I want to do in 5 years, this is what I want to do in 10 years, 20 years, this is what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
And I've been trying to figure out if it's just this privileged like mindset or like position that I've been put in and it's not like I've been privileged my whole life, but like when I started out in tech, I thought I wanted to be a network analyst, right? I wanted to be my CCIE or my CCNA or whatever.
Yep.
And that's what I wanted to do, until I found out that security was a thing. And I'm like, never mind, that's cooler. I'm going to do that instead.
Right.
So I started down the security path, right? And I did networking security, and then I worked and did Splunk stuff, and then I didn't even know detection engineers weren't really a thing then, but it was kind of what I was doing.
Right.
And I've just kind of saw a shiny thing that I know that I could probably be good at, and I go do that.
Right.
And I just wondered, like, I was led, I had somebody tell me that that was bad. And I'm like, I don't think so. I've been pretty successful
Yeah.
doing that. Like, I don't necessarily need to know what, because I like a challenge, right?
Right.
I don't necessarily know what that challenge is going to be next year. Did I ever think I'd be in management? No. Did I ever think I'd be doing product? No.
Right.
Like, I like challenges. So I just didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that, because I don't think you necessarily have to know what you want to do.
Mr. Betcher?
No, I don't think you have to know what you want to do in 5 years. It's good to have a goal, right?
Mhm.
So your decisions lead to that. There's, you know, a lot of the decisions you make every day, if you have that 5 year or 10 year plan in mind where you want to go, you'd be surprised at how many of those seemingly insignificant decisions draw you towards that goal. So I think it's good to have that in mind of where you want to be at the end, right? So yeah, I think it's good, but you don't necessarily have to have one, right? If you're um, if you're very intelligent and you can do pretty much, and you're well rounded and you can do a lot of different things, and you learn a lot of aspects of IT or whatever industry you're in, I think you can go with the flow and kind of change direction, so to speak. Maybe you do have a goal; it's just kind of subconscious, but but you're willing to change it like that, right?
Right.
Depending on like, hey, you know, quantum computing, that's a new thing. Maybe I should get into that, right? And you
Right.
start going that direction, and then all of a sudden AI, ooh, that's probably cooler, at least in your opinion. So you go that,
Right.
the opposite direction, right?
Right.
And yeah, so
I
those are
think
my thoughts.
yeah, I think my you know I for the longest time I didn't actually know what I wanted to be. Still don't in many cases. But when I joined the Navy, I remember sitting there reading some of the stuff they give you, like, hey, welcome to the Navy, you've signed away 4 years of your life. And I was looking at the career advancement scale, and it was like, oh, well, in 15 short years I could be a Master Chief of the Navy and whatever. And it's like, sometimes when we make those goals, we're doing it maybe without full knowledge or experiential knowledge. It's like, once you got 5 steps, right? So you don't know anything about what's the next step or the step after that or step after that. So you take your first step and you're like, whoa, okay, this is new and interesting. Oh, I love security. Once I get my CISP, I know I'm going to be the pimp shit and nobody's going to, give me any kind of problems, and I'm going to be, making fat loot. Take the second step and it's like, ooh, I don't really know a lot of stuff, and the CISP is probably useless in many cases, or something like that. And it's like, once as you keep going, you're going to keep making a new 5-year goal. So it's like, oh, what I've learned now is like, oh, okay, this is, I'm going to take this job and it's going to cause me mental damage, and I'm going to try to stick it out for the next 15 years or whatever. And then it's like, oh, you take that next step and you're like, oh, well, maybe there's different opportunities or something. So I think as you get more experiential knowledge, your 5-year kind of starts, after you get enough data, it starts converging. And it's like, when you're here, the path is wide. And then it's like, after you've got enough information, it starts narrowing and you start getting into place. So like when you said you were going to rule the world, Miss Berlin, it's moving in a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes.
So, and you adapt, right? To
Right.
changing environment. Like when I was 5 years old, when somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to work at McDonald's. Things change, right?
Hey, it's
I
nugs,
never
man.
worked
I
there,
get it.
right?
It's the nugs. I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn good food.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
is. That's what I thought at the time, right?
I thought it was interesting because I don't know if not everybody's super adaptable, maybe.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be,
Yeah.
because I know people that really they have a focus and they don't care. They're gonna
Right.
go do that thing no matter what.
Right.
And I like having fun more than that.
Makes sense. I mean, how many people got into security because they watched Hackers or they watched,
Right.
and then they get in here and they find, oh, you're kind of doing the same stuff every day. If you have a real day job, it's just one engagement to another. You're gonna test an API or 5 APIs, and it's gonna be, no matter how exciting your research. Yeah, you're gonna be writing reports, and it's like, wow, okay, I guess the only way to actually be the people in the movie is to not have a normal job, to be a black hat hacker or something that's always exciting, where you actually might have to dodge bullets at some point. But I think, that's where they get the experiential knowledge once they figure it out, or maybe they've talked to somebody, once they get more data points. It's, you're making decisions based on your environment and the data that you've been given. So once you have more data, your hypothesis or your theory will change, or your destination will change. It'll, you may veer a little bit, but you get there eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like we should just name that segment there's some kind of weird, segment break there. It's like, this has been another Tales of Job Philosophy or something. I don't know.
Right.
Weird. Good stuff.
We just name it like questions Amanda asks to make sure I'm not crazy.
Cool questions Amanda asks to make sure she's not crazy. All right. Well, the next section is cool questions Mr. Betcher will ask or something. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to talk about, Mr. Betcher? We can start talking about the news, or?
No, let's go with the news. Cool.
Okay. So I read this article, CSO Online, and it was about JP Morgan Chase, somebody who is in the cybersecurity group at JP Morgan Chase, has made the suggestion that there are deep flaws in the CVSS vulnerability scoring system. Now, for those of you who may not have heard of the CVSS, there's been at least 3 iterations of it. We're on the 3rd one now, and I think there's a version 4 that's coming, which is supposed to help fix some of the things from, when I was young, we had CVSS version 2. And so there was 3, and then, it added things like changing scope or what have you.
It was only 3 digits.
Yeah, we only had, 3 or 4 digits to our CVEs, and we liked it that way. But anyway, so apparently this person says that the way that these are rated actually are less than what they should be. They say, for example, CVSS scores fail to account for contextual factors such as the environment in which a vulnerability exists or whether it has been actively exploited in the wild. Well, duh. You don't.
Hasn't that always been true?
Yes.
I mean, it's a subjective rating anyway.
Right.
There's not much objective about the scoring.
Right.
No.
No. The way I always understood the rating was, if that service or that machine or that thing is, that protocol is exposed to the internet directly with no protections in the middle, then that is the absolute maximum score. When CVSS breaks down is that we as security people take the number as that's the same number in our house.
I don't think anybody does anymore, though. Like if you are, you're doing it wrong.
There are a lot of people who do it wrong.
Well, fair. A lot of people do a lot of stuff wrong, but
right. I mean, ideally, yes, you as the security people should be in your environment going, okay, well, we have a firewall, based on the data that we've got from the reg or whatever, because, it is what it is. You can downgrade that, or, it's a named vulnerability and you're going to fix it anyway because, that's just how things are. But the idea, so they say during 2023, the average disclosure rate was 80 vulnerabilities per day, a figure that is increasing around 20% year over year. And it said around 18% of the vulnerabilities rated as critical with a 3.0 score or above. And I think this person had suggested that around 10% of the vulnerabilities are being underrated. And I don't know if they're underrated because they're not high enough, or they're underrated, you know, it's like it's a 3.5, it should be a 5 or something like that. A 10 is a 10, right? You're not going to get an 11, or, you know, it's not going to go up, it doesn't go up to 11. But yeah, I don't know if they're underrated also because we don't take into account people's insecurity or security in their own environments. So, yeah, I mean, thoughts? I mean,
how can you even do that? Like, every environment's different. Every application of everything is different.
Right.
Like, that's literally impossible to, like,
it's hard. Yeah.
get that correct. I mean, the fact that they're somewhat correct 90% of the time is pretty great.
Right. Well, for the stuff that's like a Cisco, you know, level 10, if you've got Cisco, there's only, it depends on the configuration, number of configurations. That one remote code exec, you know, without password login or whatever, you're always going to run your Cisco kit on the boundary in the same way. You're going to have to expose the same things. So it's when you get behind 7 firewalls, then things become a little, you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was, the assert inadequate dependency consideration is another major shortcoming of CVSS scores, affecting the prioritization of at least 11% of CVEs. Yeah. So I guess this is where we can talk about things like, you know, the CIS top 20 and you know, showing more value there, where it's like we need to take the time to do things like asset identification, or, you know, bill of materials or packages used in our code repos. Because if we get a CVSS 10, let's say, and, you know, it comes out as that, by having that internal information, the assets, the packages that we use in our repos, etc., what products use what libraries, we can be faster at downgrading or prioritizing the fixes for these, and we'll save ourselves time in the long run. But what is it? How much is an investment of like an internal CVSS? I mean, that's pretty much how you have to do it, right? You have to have that asset identification. You have to have that software library kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason you'd want to upgrade those is, like you said, if you have a Cisco vuln and maybe it's a high, and you have those exact versions or whatever, or you have some keys to the kingdom behind it,
right,
and it's exposed to the internet, you may want to treat that as a critical. But it's all up to what kind of configuration you have in your environment.
Right. Ms. Berlin, thoughts?
Yeah, it's same. Like, I mean, that's why everyone has well, everyone should, I guess, have their own internal vulnerability management.
Right.
That's
person or people.
That's why you pay people to be on your team who know what they're doing. Right. I mean, that's why we're here.
I'm sure everyone has scanned something with a vulnerability vulnerability scanner and seen like, oh, like these things are top 10 CV, and like, well, they're not really. Like, I really don't care about those.
Yeah.
Right. But everybody, so I've done this. It's like, look, we ran those scans, right? And it's an 8.5. I may not know what's going on in my environment. And so my assumption is that it goes as an 8.5. So when we raise the question to people, and we do it all the time, hey, this is a CVSS 8.5, we need to fix it. And then their response to us is, oh, well, you know, we've got a firewall. It's, you know, the real, what's the real impact here? And some of that is we're missing like the business impact too. It's like, okay, if we get this vulnerability and it affects this product that we have, well, okay, yes, it affects one person's account. It doesn't attack, you know, the impact is it's not a fleet of accounts. It's not, you know, all of the servers. 9.7 on an air-gapped machine, exactly. To Mike's point, it's like, how can it be a 9.7 on that machine if it doesn't have access to the internet, or it's, I mean, that's where, the vulnerability management people have a really hard job by having to know everything that they've got going on. And they have to be a bit, it's an interesting conundrum for the VM folks, because I know that I didn't have that kind of information because our assets records were incomplete. I'm not saying that at my current or former jobs, but one former job, but you don't necessarily have a full accounting of everything that's going on in that environment. And there may not be a good way of doing it. And
plus, if you have, let's say you have cyber insurance and you sign that form that says you'll adhere to the NIST standard.
Oh no, Mr. Betchers. Mr. Betchers,
not to do that.
We didn't get that last bit. Repeat your point. You cut out there for a second.
Okay, where did I end up? Cyber insurance, right?
Cyber insurance.
If you sign that form that says you'll fix that critical in 7 days or that high in 14, then you don't do that.
Right.
And then you have a breach and need a payout, right? And they find out, hey, you had this high and it took you 3 months to fix it.
Right.
And maybe that contributed or not, but yeah, you're basically not following your own company policies.
Right. And this is where we use our role as a product manager to go, this needs to be fixed because GRC, because audit, because whatever. And so, our customer, which is the audit function, or the regulators who are finding people, would be all like, this is a problem. And, that's why we have SLAs in those first places. So good discussion. Anybody have any thoughts in chat? CVSS. CVEs are different. So, they, impact really makes a lot of difference if, it affects, and maybe your part of your private CVSS internally would be, does this affect one customer? Does it affect every customer that you have? Does it affect one server you have? Does it affect hundreds of servers you have? So Yin says, I had more than 200 to resolve when I took over after our breach. I made all kinds of promises to the card brands and the governments. They checked. Oh, so if you're on the hook to fix those, you're now the priority in the product management pool, that kind of thing. So, what was the other one here?
Just a question.
Sure.
Like, if you have a critical vulnerability, other than a system outage, what's more important than fixing that?
Yeah.
What's more important to the product team, to the development team, right?
Well, theirs is not availability, right? They're still, they do care about availability, but from a back end point of view, it'd be more of an operational thing. But I would say time is money, and making it available. It says after a breach, the system outage is the least of your concerns. Yeah. So. Yep. Yep. Let's see. I don't want to talk about newsletters. I think we've already done that one to death. Wait, Krispy Kreme? Come on now. What's going on with Krispy Kreme? What happened?
Krispy Kreme got breached.
No.
They were down. I know.
What? Wait, like credit card breach?
Operational disruptions due to cybersecurity incident.
Oh, crap.
Like online ordering and stuff.
Do you know how many Krispy Kremes I bought in Vegas and DEF CON with credit card? Great. I'm going to have to get my credit card renewed. Dang it.
Yep.
That sucks. So, wait, so they were notified. So Krispy Kreme was notified regarding unauthorized activity. So law enforcement found out and called up Krispy Kreme and said, hey, bruh, you know, love your fritters, but, you know, yeah. Hey, keep an eye on the, yeah.
There's some kind of law enforcement Krispy Kreme joke here somewhere that I'm missing.
Love your fritters. It's the police. We love your fritters. Had some bad stuff going. Yeah, no, man, that sucks. That sucks. Filing business, yeah, until they company note in-person ordering was unaffected. Oh, that's good. That's good. And that all Krispy Kreme shops worldwide are still open. Okay. Well, at least they didn't, you know, mess up the IoT there. So, yeah.
Right.
How many cops got compromised? Exactly. Again, how many? Yeah. How many notifications went out to law enforcement? That 100%.
Like, did their light still work?
Yeah, exactly. Time to make the donuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that sucks. $1.7 billion.
The level of cybersecurity was, how much staff they had, what are their creds.
Right.
I always want to know that. Did they really take security seriously, or, you know, did they just have the bare minimum?
Right.
Yeah, it would be interesting. They're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And I like they were bought by holding company in 2021, and it was interesting, like all of the other companies that holding company owns. So like they own Caribou Coffee, Panera, Keurig, Dr. Pepper. I guess it's just interesting when you learn what holding companies have, like conglomerates and what.
Yeah, like Yum Foods is like KFC, Pizza Hut,
Right.
Taco Bell. Yeah. Kentucky Pizza Bell. Yeah. So let me see. They don't have any. So they had to find out through the 8K filing. They didn't. I don't know. I guess they didn't publicly announce it. I guess they were just kind of holding off and going to let people kind of figure it out. They were going to find out on their own through the 8K filing. Cyber insurance coverage is expected to offset a portion of the cost while it works to determine full scope, nature, and impact. So apparently insurance is going to pay for some of it. So there's some due diligence apparently there, Mr. Betcher. I think if we can infer that from data points we've heard of where, you know, they have to show some due diligence internally. Company has not revealed if it's been contacted by a specific ransomware group or if any data was compromised in the breach. So it does sound like ransomware maybe.
Any data was compromised. If no data was compromised, was it really a breach? I mean, yeah, ransomware can take a system down, but if it's like, for example, in HIPAA, if no data was stolen, if you could prove that, then it, you know, then it would be a breach technically.
Yeah. Well, they're not being emphatic here. They say what if any, right? So they can't tell that yet. And I would argue that would be really, really hard to, well, maybe not really, really hard to prove, but you would have to definitely have some kind of full packet inspection or something in your network to be able to pull that off. I mean,
well, every Windows computer kind of has that. So you can tell every Windows system has a database which tells you, okay, this process sent this amount of data. So you can infer from each process how much data was transferred. And so if a minor amount was transferred, you can kind of make the assumption that it wasn't a breach because, you know, based on the size.
Right. I mean, and that would make sense if they weren't ransomware, and they probably couldn't get to any of that data anyway because it was encrypted. I mean, unless you're pulling that stuff off and storing, you know, all of the files on other boxes.
There are Trojans that will, you know, steal data first, do whatever they want, reconnaissance, you know, and then at the very end, once they have everything, they'll just ransom. Right.
Yeah.
So that's probably the ideal situation from a hacker's perspective is you get all the data
Right.
And then you ransom and try to extract even more, like monetary,
Right.
from the company.
Right. Let's see what that was good discussion. That's the book from Inside the Beltway. Let me see if there was anything else. I'm not sure about the newsletter one. I mean, maybe we could have that kind of discussion. Where did I put that? There it is. All right, so let me put this one in the chat window, because I think this is another one of those ugly things we're going to kind of talk about with like hiring and all that. There we go. Sorry about that. It is a really long link, but it does go to this. It says, I've read many newsletters like TLDRs, Venture and Sec, etc. And what I realized is that the solutions they present, in this case, in the newsletters about how to do X or Y or implement MFA or what have you, are very limited to Silicon Valley tech companies. It says most of the articles describe how security engineering should be like and take examples from tech companies in Silicon Valley. In most companies, they don't have a culture of a Silicon Valley tech company. One article mentioned we should not ask developers to fix vulnerabilities if we don't know the context. But they don't know that most companies do not have armies of security engineers to research context. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. My internet was cutting out, so I caught half of that.
Check the.
Oops.
Let me put the link in there for you. You can skim the Reddit page there. So I think what this person is saying is, if you've only worked in Silicon Valley tech companies with massive budgets of all kinds, that's not going to work for a small or medium business. It's just not realistic. And when I read that, one of the things I thought of was, when you go to security conferences, you see the same thing. It's like, oh, you're just going to, do all this stuff. And, can you take this back immediately and do it? Well, it would depend on, do you have this person from Microsoft is talking about how they implemented all this stuff with, but they have 200 security engineers who can do these things. I guess the thought I'm having here is, what do we do about that? I'm not saying those newsletters aren't great. I read several of them, but I mean, it sounds like this is a data point that maybe some people miss.
It's some one of the talks that I recently wrote was kind of around this, where like most software, for example, is written for enterprise level people, right? Like no one writes software, not no one. Most companies don't write software for small to medium business. They write it for the enterprise and then hope that an MSP takes it and then helps an SMB use it. Right. It's very rare that you find something that's usable and like purpose written for small to medium business. So same thing with newsletters.
Right.
Which, I mean, it's a huge, SMB is a huge part of like the GDP and just like the amount of data and security and tech that we have in, the entire world. And they're just kind of trying to use enterprise tools in their environment, but they're not well. Like, I don't know how many Splunk installations I've seen at SMB is that they just don't have the time and effort and people. And, that's just one example, right? It's just like, there's a lot of stuff like that.
That's unfortunate because, that leads to things like misconfigurations or, potential, you're only using 10% of the thing that you paid a ton of money for. And, it's mostly useless to you unless you buy this other little bit, which is going to cost you yet more money. And you get vendor lock-in because it's like, well, they're going to give you a deal if you buy everything under the sun and become a complete Cisco shop or a complete, Fortinet or Blue Coat shop or something like that. So, yeah. Interesting. Do you think we need to have I don't know. What I'm trying to think of is we have conferences and we have people in like beside San Diego, beside Seattle. They work at the big four, you know, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, those folks. So they come and they want to speak, or, you know, we have our thought leaders who come in who, you know, are CISOs or something like that. If they've never worked in a specific part of the country, they don't necessarily understand. And this goes back to Silicon Valley. So, what is there something we can tell people who are speaking that maybe they should, you know, get some data points about talking about things realistically, or, you know, should we have a different, like a small and medium business security conference?
I think that would be great. Like even looking at like going into product stuff, I wanted to talk to like industry analysts, right? So like there's all of the people that do stuff with Gartner and like all of the other, you know, analysts that gather all this data and do all this stuff for product people.
Right.
And none of it's for SMBs.
Right.
Like they're like none of it.
Right.
Everything is for enterprise and like very large companies, very mature companies.
Right.
No one, yeah. Like, so the closest thing that I found was when I started going to um like more tech conferences and not really security conferences. So like I went to Spice World, which is the Spiceworks conference.
Right. Right.
Like I'm sure everybody's heard of Spiceworks because of like you Google something and it ends up like on a thread somewhere in Spiceworks.
Right.
That was like a lot of SMB, MSP, like just practitioner, non-security people, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're just like they're doing cool stuff. It's all about like RMM tools and scripting and trying to do more with less. And I don't think, yeah, you're right. Like a lot of the talks you hear are very pie in the sky. Like I have a big budget.
Right. Right. And, you know, it would seem to me that a smaller, medium-sized business solution should be able to scale. So this would benefit the big companies as well, right? So, you know, if you've got something that will work with a smaller, medium, you know, landscaping company or something like that, it would be able to ramp up to the big four. Or, you know, there would be ways to add more things once you figure that out that would, you know, it would suffice in that space. So anyway, I don't know. We want to talk about this.
You want to start a newsletter for SMBs next?
That would be interesting. I mean, doesn't Paul Asadorian and them do the small business security podcast stuff?
They do, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's already people kind of trying to fill that need, you know, certain companies and certain, you know, podcasts and content. I don't think do you want to talk about, anybody want to talk about Salt Typhoon? I mean, I found there was a whole, you know, the Salt Typhoon, not to go in too much into it, but that article was kind of, you know, profiling what it was apparently they've owned up a lot of telecoms. Verizon, AT&T, Lumen have infiltrated them through potentially infrastructure made by ZTE and Huawei, which are the same two companies that Australia ejected about 5 years ago after they found them inside their organizations and their telecoms and inside the national bandwidth bit. So, yeah, the government is paying telecoms $3 billion from the defense fund to rip out anything ZTE and Huawei based. And seems a little odd to me. I don't know. I try not to make this political, but it's like the government has to pay the telecoms to rip and replace infrastructure. Mm-hmm. When the telecoms make billions of dollars a quarter already. And so I just found that interesting. I
wonder if that's why my cell phone service sucks lately.
Well, there had been
Well,
major Verizon outages. But yeah, I don't know.
my theory is it was a intelligence agency backdoor that got out. And now they just
Ooh.
made up all this stuff and called it this fancy name and said it's the Chinese. And maybe it was the Chinese that
Right.
found out
Right.
about this backdoor.
Right.
There's no secret that what was it wasn't Signal, but it was another messaging app where the CEO wouldn't play nice with the CIA or whatnot. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, he just out of the blue gets arrested. And then he tweets out, yeah, we're going to work with them to fight crime on our messaging app, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what happened, right? Come on.
It was
All these
suggested.
apps,
It was highly recommended that you get involved, helping save the kids or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's all these pervies out there, and we got to read their messages, right? So
Yep.
yeah, there's no really secure way to send data. It's not, between on the phone. Just
Yeah.
by default, assume that someone's reading your messages.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if it's encrypted or secure or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody's in between, right?
I did find it interesting that the FBI and I think CISA came out with guidance saying you should not be sending SMS messages. You should be using Signal. Because they had lobbied for years to try to get a backdoor into systems like Signal, and Signal basically told them pack sand. And now they're telling them to use the exact system because it isn't backdoored, and that it will protect you from China at least. So I did find a bit of irony in that respect. And this is all because of the Salt Typhoon, the infrastructure, the billions of dollars, and then this. So it's like an interesting list of things that have happened in the past few weeks that are kind of precipitating stuff. Yes, Young. These are the assholes that want to outlaw it. I'll allow that comment. But yes. The irony is thick. I'm sure GCHQ is also saying similar, and they were one of the first people to get on the hey, we'd like to backdoor your Signal. So yeah. Anyway, just an interesting series of things going on there. The dominoes are falling in some direction. I just don't know how many more there are. So cool. Well, I think I'm good. I think we can go. Yeah. Mr. Betcher, happy holidays. Hope you can find some time to spend with family and not have to work. And myself, I'm going to be on a cruise ship from the 17th through the 30th in the Caribbean. So over Christmas, we hit San Juan, Puerto Rico on Boxing Day. So, and yeah, we're gonna hit Virgin Islands and all that area. So we're gonna be on a cruise ship like the Cranks, that movie Christmas with the Cranks. So,
I think I've never seen that.
I want to say it was Christmas with the Cranks, but yeah, it was like weird for somebody to go, oh, well, we're just gonna go on vacation over Christmas, and they're like, oh, who does that? And that was kind of the premise of the movie, I thought, but yeah. So yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah, Walter, happy holidays to yourself. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're feeling better. So, Miss Berlin, how would people send holiday greetings to you, or did you get your Secret Santa this year? Was that even done?
I guess it wasn't done. A couple people reached out to me asking, and I haven't done it. I have not run it for the last 3 years. I had other people do it.
Right.
And I kind of just forgot to ask if they were doing it this year, and I guess it didn't get done. But I did hear. So I went and spoke at St. Con a month ago, and they actually took up their own version of Hacker Secret Santa in like their own little group.
Oh, cool.
Like their local security group.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to, I suggest you do that. It got too much for me to manage.
Yeah.
People are like, well, doesn't Elfster do it all for you? I'm like, well, in theory, until you have like 30 people contacting you being like, I didn't get my gift, or this person's being mean, or I'm like, I don't want to deal with that anymore.
No.
It's not fun anymore.
Nope. I can understand that. Mike says it was a great HushCon this weekend. Yeah, HushCon Seattle was going on this weekend. I missed that.
I do highly recommend SaintCon though for anybody.
SaintCon? Okay.
Fantastic.
Very cool. All right, on. How would people find you if they wanted to talk about the holidays?
Probably LinkedIn.
LinkedIn? Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. Mr. Betcher, what are you going to be doing for the holidays?
Visiting family, cooking. I got a new smoker, so one of those pellet grills.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Lots of food coming out of that thing. And so I cooked a spatchcock turkey.
Okay.
How
long did it take you to do that?
Is.
Yeah.
It was on 3.5 hours. It was on there. So
That's
not too bad.
All right. Well, so if people wanted to reach out to you about, spatchcocking a chicken or a turkey, how would they do that?
I guess LinkedIn would be the best way.
Okay. Hey, you know what? I've seen LinkedIn posts that have nothing to do with being LinkedIn, and it's just straight up Facebook now. It's just like poof.
Yep.
And that sucks. Yep. That sucks. But yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm on Blue Sky at brianbrake.com, which is weird. I registered my domain instead of using the bsky.social or whatever. We're here on stream Tuesdays and Fridays. Not for the next couple weeks. I'm going to be going on vacation, so internet on the ship sucks. So I'll be taking a couple weeks off. We're still going to go through and set up our Proxmox servers for malware analysis once we get back, and we'll take it as we go. So yeah.
Once Elon gets that 5G going, then you'll be golden anywhere, right?
I mean, it's not bad on the ship, but it would be. I don't think streaming works all that well on the ships. They are going to Starlink though, so yeah, at some point it'll be just like being on the land. So, So, thank y'all for being here. Thank you, Ms. Berlin, Mr. Betcher, and I hope to see more of you next year. I know we'll all probably, hopefully, be working DEF CON together. I'm thankful for both of you. So, yeah. And I'm thankful for all of our followers, Mike, Yin, Walter, everybody on BreakSec who come by and hang out, Age of Music, and all those folks. So, that was it for this year. We'll be back in 2025, and this has been Brian and Mr. Betcher, Ms. Berlin, and you have a great holiday and new year, and take care of yourselves, because as we're fond of saying here, you're the only you are. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.